Hey, Mark Ouellette, welcome to our Tick Bootcamp podcast.
Good to be here.
So, Mark, I had to tell everybody before we get into your journey that I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today because it's rare we find men with Lyme in the community who are willing to come on the podcast and share their story. I'm one of the few, you're one of the few. So, first of all, thank you for being so brave to come on and share your Lyme story.
My pleasure to be here, spread awareness, and talk about my story. I'll tell you my story.
So, for everybody listening, Mark has a really interesting life. He was a wrestler, he was a bodybuilder, and he's now a retired cop and had an experience with Lyme disease that he's going to share with us and what he did to get through it. So before we get there, I want to bounce all the way back, Mark, to what life was like as a child and where you grew up.
Okay, so I'm born and raised outside of Boston, on the South Shore of Boston. I grew up there, went to school there, been here my whole life. I've never left. Um, I grew up, my parents divorced when I was about 10 and grew up. I had a good life, middle class upbringing, a little bit rough being with a single parent, but you just make the best of it, and you figure it out there the best that you can, I guess, to tell you.
Yeah, and having, divorced parents is not super uncommon. So I would say it sounds like you had a pretty normal childhood, middle class, and a normal experience. Is that an accurate assessment there, Mark?
I would say that's pretty accurate. Yep.
Did you have any signs of health issues as a kid?
So I would say when I was a kid, I was kind of what you would call a little bit of a sickly kid, meaning I had like ear and nose and throat infections, um, stuff like that. Just the regular allergies, seasonal allergies on and off. But again, like I said, I had like the sore throats and the ear infection, kind of not all the time, but you know, a couple times throughout the year, I would get sick. I don't know if that's most kids or whatever, but yeah.
But nothing to raise a red flag where your parents or was your mom who raised you, Mark?
Yes. Yeah.
So nothing where your mom had a red flag where she was taking you to doctors to see what was going on. Just you got sick, you had some ear infections, nose infections, throat infections, some allergies, and that was it.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So tell us, as you were getting through school, what you were looking to do, and were you looking to go to college, and what were your next steps in life as you were getting through high school?
So um, I was kind of the class clown, if you will. I was attention seeker. I think after my dad left, there was like a kind of a void there, and I didn't really know what direction I was heading in. Again, I ran with some guys. They're all good friends of mine. We've all kind of found our ways, but we were kind of a rebellious group of guys. I didn't really have much direction when I got out of school. I kind of just figured it out. I did a little bit of this. I did a little bit of that. There's not too many jobs I don't think I haven't done. I was everything to working on roofs, bartending, uh, security, bouncing, you name it. I've probably done it at some point. I got into law enforcement. I kind of got a little bit more focused on law enforcement in my, I would probably say 22, 23, 24. I kind of said, you know what? I'm good at the whole security thing. I think I could make, a career out of if I get, catch a break. And eventually, like I said, I kind of caught the break, and I got on board in law enforcement when I was 26.
So, Mark, what were you doing between the time you graduated high school and 26 when you became a law enforcement officer?
So for the most part, like I said, I kind of got out of school. I didn't really have the means to go to college, and I kind of had a tough time just graduating high school. I wasn't the most studious guy. Um, I, like I said, I just worked a lot of jobs, odd jobs, 2 to 3 jobs at a time, just finding my way about, figuring out what I wanted to do with myself. I got into weightlifting and bodybuilding then. Um, and like I say, I just kind of decided to focus in on the whole law enforcement thing and started taking the entrance exams for different, academies and stuff like that. And again, I was just into fitness and bodybuilding from probably about the age of 20 years old on. So 53 now. So it's been quite a long journey. I still am into the fitness and bodybuilding.
So, Mark, if you could share, where did you end up getting a job in law enforcement?
So I got a job with the Department of Correction in my state. I got into the investigations department. I worked in investigations for a long time in various capacities, inside the facilities, outside, doing outside liaisons with different agencies, doing background checks, teaching at the academy, all different kinds. I kind of wore a lot of hats, just to make that time go by, rather than just kind of sitting around waiting. I like to keep myself busy. So like I said, I worked in investigations for a long time. They would move me around. I would go work in HR, background checking recruits. I would do criminal investigations, all kinds of different stuff. So
Talk to us about the weightlifting and bodybuilding and fitness part of your life in your early 20s, because, we generally think people that are lifting weights and, bodybuilding are extremely healthy. But we've learned from some doctors and other people that if you over-exercise, that's something that can actually make you more vulnerable and compromise your immune system. So at the time, when you were aware of that, and where do you think you were in your fitness journey? Do you think it was a healthy fitness journey, or almost where you're over-exercising and taxing your immune system?
At that time, I was younger, in my early 20s. I don't think that I was pushing myself quite a bit. I'm the kind of person that's all gas, no brakes. So I pushed myself pretty hard, but I didn't feel that I was kind of pushing over my limit. I was staying in that limit, in that zone. I don't feel as though it affected my health very much, if that makes sense.
It does.
Later in life, when I got into competing, then it got more extreme. So at that point, yeah, it can be, the dieting and whatnot. That can, the amount of output when you're in a deficit as far as your diet goes, when you're getting ready to compete, that can be a time where you're tired, your immune system is not as robust. You're trying to take extra supplements to keep your immune system, in check. But people usually do get sick when they're in a prep phase of their training, if they're going to be competing. So you just got to kind of manage it the best you can.
So what's interesting is I'm already picking up some signs here. So what I mean by that, Mark, is we've interviewed now, I don't know, close to 550 people on this podcast and spoken to thousands of people in the community. And there's some things that I've noticed in myself and many people that are sort of signs leading up to a strong Lyme experience, meaning you don't just get Lyme and get better with a short course of doxycycline, you get really sick, right? And some of these I can't speak to the actual science behind, but one of them is you kept mentioning you're all gas and no brakes. You were go, 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 go. You worked all these jobs. You were just, pedal to the metal. And generally, when we hear that, that's a sign of somebody who is just pushing too hard. And then when they get sick, they get really sick, right? So, and what's interesting is I've been very observant of these patterns. And even people that are quote unquote healthy in my life, I share these patterns with them, because if they ever get sick with anything, it could be cancer, it could be Lyme, it could be any kind of illness, they're probably going to be more sick than the average person. So, do you agree that some of these signs, I guess we'll start with the first one, the all gas, no brakes, may have been a contributing factor to why you got so sick when, eventually you got sick later on in life?
Yeah. So I can actually attest to that. Most recently, when I was, after my diagnosis 4 years ago, I was still going to the gym, still trying to do the training the way I'd always been doing it. And I was actually making myself more ill. I would notice I would get into a good routine, get my rhythm going, and then all of a sudden I would get that like Herx effect, where it was, I would train, I would put myself through the ringer like really, really hard. And then I'd notice like next day I'd have a fever, I'd have cold symptoms, like this, that backup where your body's just not getting rid of all that die off. And I noticed that I had to stop. I had to take more time between my workouts. And I got to the point where I didn't understand what was going on. and I end up having to take off over about a year and a half. So I just started training again about like 2 months ago, and I left the gym about December of 2023. So close to a year and a half I had to take off because every time I tried to go and do something, I would just get sick. And I was just repeating the process, repeating until I spoke with somebody who told me that, hey, you know, when you're training like that, you're creating a lot of die-off and your body's not, you know, your lymphatic system's not moving fast enough to process it. That's why you're getting sick. So I actually kind of had to put some protocols in place for myself where I was allowing I can go and train, but I got some things in place to help with that after effect of, you know, and avoid the hercs. And so far it's been working pretty good. So I have to say, you know, I'm back. I'm not full force yet, but I'm pretty close to it. And I've been getting pretty good, solid workouts in without the hercs thing.
Yes, I have a ton of questions on that, and we're going to get to that in a little bit, that
Sure.
part of your journey. But I'm going to go back again to some other signs that I noticed, which was you said when you were younger, you had some ear, nose, and throat infections and allergies. And I'm drawing a lot of parallels between our journeys here, Mark. So one of them was I was a long distance runner. And when I got sick, I could barely walk 5 houses without having severe symptoms. And I kept pushing and pushing and pushing and hurting myself, which was not the right thing to do. But I had that same mentality, all gas, no brakes, right? But when you get sick with Lyme or sick with one of these conditions, you have to listen to your body. So I think, you know, that's a message for people who do get sick, but also people that are all gas, no break have to learn how to balance life a little bit better so they don't get as sick if they do get sick, right? That's lesson number one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The other part of this is, you know, when I did get sick, I would have all of these chronic ear infections and, so, you know, throat infections. And when our bodies are compromised or more vulnerable for a variety of reasons, we get infections more than other people. So I
Yep.
wonder if your body was fighting things off at a young age, and because you were so healthy, as you got older, you got into fitness, right? You were just managing it and keeping it at bay and just strengthening your immune system. But maybe your
Absolutely.
body, your whole life was just fighting these things off. You know, what do you think about that?
I think that could be a possibility. Like I say, there's always been times I accumulate. I would say a lot of it to me, I attributed to the amount of stress of being on my job as well and trying to manage the stress along with the illnesses. You know, I had a lot of in my career. I suffered with gastro esophagus reflux disease. You know, GERD. I had a lot of GI issues during my career, and you know, I noticed that came into play as well. Not as much as the nose, ears, and throat stuff, but on a parallel, I noticed that, you know, the more stress you're under with your body, both physically and mentally, more issues can arise from that.
Yeah, do you think you had Lyme early on? Because generally, this is the pattern we see, right? Where you have these infections, the ENT, right? The ear, nose, and throat stuff. You got bad allergies, which creates a foundation of inflammation in your body. Then you're getting these gastrointestinal symptoms that you described. You know, we've heard this a lot where the symptoms build up until eventually you have a crash, which we'll get to about, you know, your diagnosis and, you know, the precursor to that. But how early do you think you actually were infected with Lyme? Or do you think possibly you had congenital Lyme?
So I would say the first time I look back and think about it, I don't know about as a kid. I think maybe it could have been there because there were times in the summer that I would have like a lot of fatigue and be tired. Um, I don't know if that was it or not. I can't say to that. I never was checked for it back then. I would say my first thought of having Lyme was probably about 10 years ago when I started getting migraine headaches and having some memory lapses, which was very concerning to me because I had always had a very sharp, like photographic memory. Like I could meet you somewhere one time and then I would know like, oh, I met that guy at such and such a place and time. And I would remember everything. And then almost like the simplest of things I was starting to forget, which was kind of, to me, it's very concerning. It was giving me a lot of anxiety. And I finally made an appointment with a neurologist. And I went to see the neurologist, had set all these assessments done. And they never tested me for Lyme, which I thought was kind of odd because they had given me a brain MRI and it said what they found on the MRI could be attributed due to Lyme disease.
So something else, I'm just as I'm talking to you, Mark, and I'm just thinking even more. You mentioned, and again, just identifying these patterns. You mentioned earlier that you were the class clown as a kid, right? And you were the attention seeker. Were you like we hear often people say they're people pleasers. Were you a people pleaser as a kid as well?
To a degree, maybe. Yeah, I could say to a degree a people pleaser, but I still had boundaries. I didn't let. I always stood up for myself. Anytime I was bullied or anything, I'd always stand up to the bullies. I got in a lot of fights just because I wanted to be respected and not picked on. But yeah, of course, you want people to be happy. You want people to like you or respect you, not necessarily like you, but more or less respect you. And if you feel like you're not getting respect, that's a different story. But to try to be nice to people, I've always tried to be a good person, not overstep other people's boundaries. And I expect the same in return, not have people overstep my boundaries.
Yeah. So now you're working in the corrections officer facility and you're doing investigations, for HR, inside, outside, right? All these different things. Talk to us about your health and your life at this time. So tell us, are you meeting anybody? What's your personal life like? And then also what's your health life like at that time?
Okay. I can say, so I started that position in 1998. I was very robust, very healthy, very in shape, working out probably 6 days a week. Like I said, I didn't get into competing till about probably 10 years ago. So it was just a fitness journey at that point. And I always had the thought of maybe I'll compete someday. Like I said, I was a very, very healthy person, always in shape. Then in 2004, I had a reconstructive procedure done on my shoulder, AC joint reconstruction. And then I started after that. I got the acid reflux issues. That's when my health kind of took a little bit of a turn. I started feeling, that heartburn a lot. Anything I ate seemed to just, cause problems for me. I was put on medication for about 3 years. And it was just I would have to say it was probably a really brutal time in my life between 04 and 07. I had to stop. I was in the whole wrestling thing. I had to stop that. I wasn't training a lot. And I found I found something back then, and I'm a huge proponent of it now. I did a 30-day gut cleanse, and that's got rid of my gastroesophageal reflux. Hadn't had to take medicine after that, and really seemed to help me bounce back from some of those issues. And I was able to get back in the gym doing that gut cleanse. Helped me out tremendously. And believe it or not, that's kind of what got me back into the gym this time around. I feel like, your gut and your brain are connected, and, a clean gut I think is vital for your health and your immune system. I'm actually still on a gut cleanse now. I turned my 30-day gut cleanse into a 90-day gut cleanse because I had heard that the Lyme life cycle is 80 days. And I thought, you know what? I feel so good on this thing right now. Let's see if I can stretch it out for a couple months, which I'm on now. I'm on that back end of the 90 days. And my symptoms have been very minimal since I started this thing in early March.
So, Mark, tell us what's in this gut cleanse. And I guess is it the same gut cleanse you're doing today that you started doing in 2004 after your surgery?
Yes.
And what specifically is in it?
So there's a lot of herbal supplements in it, antiparasitics, pumpkin seed, papaya seed, stuff like that. I want to say there's clove in it. Let's see, there are other. Let's see, chamomile, lavender. So there's 3 parts to it. So garlic is in it. So you take a set of capsules, is 4 capsules. You take that, you wait about 30 minutes, then there's a drink you take afterwards. It's like a powder, almost like a Metamucil. You mix it up with a cup of water. You drink that down real quick. It's not the best tasting stuff, but it's got like some fiber in it, so everything expands. It helps your gut expand. It pulls all the impacted fecal matter from your intestinal wall, and just helps flush it out. So like I said, I started one March 7th, first week of March. And in that first month, I got rid of so much gunk in my intestines. I actually dropped from 224 to 207.
Wow.
In 30 days, just on that gut cleanse. I cleaned up my diet a little bit, cut down a lot of the carb intake that I had. And I, like I said, the migraines I was getting, the brain fog, the stiff necks, the gut issues all seemed to kind of dissipate. All those symptoms I was experiencing were really like drastically reduced.
Yeah, and they say that your immune system is heavily rooted in your gut health. And if your gut isn't healthy, your immune system won't be healthy. So, really it's critical to address your gut health. Now, can you share with us, is it a brand you buy? Because I know people listening are going to want to know what you're trying specifically. Can you share the brand, the name of the product and things like that?
The name of the company is Dr. Natura, Natura, DRNATURA, drnatura.com. And the cleanse itself is called the Colonix 30-day cleanse.
Got it. Okay, cool. So I'm going to drop that into the show notes as well. When this goes up, we're going to have that website and that product in the show notes for everybody listening. So let's go back to 2004. You had your surgery. You were having some issues. You got some symptoms. You did the cleanse. You got yourself in a better place. And now you're starting to go back to the gym even more. Is it at this time that you started to get into the competition side of weightlifting? And also, when were you wrestling too? I know there was a wrestling, journey in here as well somewhere.
Yeah. So I started wrestling around 99, 2000. I was already kind of older at that point. I was about close to 30, I think. And I was in the gym just working out and horsing around with a couple of my buddies. And a kid came over to me. He says, "Oh, do you like wrestling?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, I watched it when I was a kid. So he goes, "I know a guy that promotes wrestling shows. He's looking for some guys. He think he'd like you. You got a good build. You look good." So he gave me the guy's number and said, "Hey, just give this guy a call." So kind of thought about it. And I said, it's something I kind of always thought was fun. So I called the guy up. And next thing I know, I'm at his house. He's got a ring set up. And we're in the ring. And we're, running the ropes and flopping and taking bumps and all kinds of stuff. And next thing you know, 3 months later, I'm performing in shows in front of live audiences.
Wow. So what kind of wrestling? Is this more like real wrestling, or is it more like WWF or WWE wrestling? Like more of the fake
WWE.
Kind,
Yeah, like
Not
WWE.
I say fake.
I actually tried out for WWE in 2001 after wrestling for about a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but although it's not real wrestling, you still get beat up, right? You still get, you
still feel it. Yeah. When you take a few of those bumps on that ring, it's not like memory foam or whatever, like people think. It's pretty, there's solid wood under that. And they put like a kind of a dense mat there. And like when you hear that boom, that bump, that's real. That you feel that sometimes when you hit that.
Yeah, we had one of the UFC stars, Jim Miller, on our podcast, and he talked to us about his experiences. And I really think it's similar. Your body's getting beat up as a UFC fighter, as a wrestler, and I feel like that physical trauma to your body is another thing that is sort of compromising you and making you susceptible to illness as well. And that's something else. I think it's another lesson we've learned here.
Yeah, I think the more you tax your body, the more can happen to you. I think it's important, like I say, for your overall health. Again, eat healthy, whole foods, supplementation. If you're going to live a lifestyle like that, you got to kind of take care of your body. Your body will take care of you. Again, like I say, I was all gas, no brakes. And, when I kind of got into that, I had something, like I said, I always wanted to do it. And then all of a sudden here I am, like 28 or 29 years old, and some random kid approaches me in a gym. Next thing I know, I'm like almost 30, and I'm in the ring doing shows in front of live audiences. Like, it's an experience. Like when you get in front of that crowd, that the adrenaline you get out of it, you want to do good. You got, one take to get it right. You don't want to screw up. So it's a performance, even though it's a performance, your body gets beat up doing it. I've had to take breaks. I've had a few concussions along the line. You bump your head the wrong way, or you get dropped the wrong way, or whatever, or you take a bump the wrong way. You can leave, you can get injured, you can get hurt real bad. So
yeah, there's so many patterns here in your story, Mark. I'm just sharing them because I think it's important, for everybody to hear this. So I've never heard of so many people having concussions until starting T Boot Camp, right? I mean, It blows my mind how many people that come on this podcast have shared they've had one or many concussions in their journey, whether pre or post Lyme. And we've asked a lot of the leading doctors and researchers what their views are towards this, and it's twofold. That, obviously without further research, the thoughts are if you're sick from Lyme, you're potentially more neurologically impaired, and therefore you're more likely to bump your head and get a concussion, right? But that's the one side of it. But on the other side of it, it's, hey, if I think it's maybe the case in your case, where if you're getting one or many concussions due to your profession, or in your case wrestling, right, or Jim Miller, he's fighting in UFC, and you get these concussions, it's another thing that makes you more vulnerable and more compromised. And actually, if you get Lyme, you have a much worse experience if you've had concussions before the actual disease, being contracted by the patient, right? So it's another interesting pattern here that we're seeing with you, that you had a very severe case of Lyme disease and you had multiple concussions.
Yeah. Like I say, when fast forward a few years after that, when I started having the memory lapses and the headaches, the migraines, is when, like I said, I became more concerned about what was going on with my health, my body, to the point where I said, you know what, I need to go see neurology here, because I don't know where it was the memory lapses more than the headaches. Just sitting there forgetting somebody's name or something like that, to where I was like, my God, what's wrong with me? Getting massive anxiety just because I would see somebody oh my God, I don't remember that person's name. I remember everybody's name. What's going on here? Why am I not remembering things?
Yeah. Mark, can you give us another example of the memory loss? Because, we've heard some really wild stories, and I've had some crazy stories myself, but I'm curious if you can think of one of the more severe memory loss, I'll call it disturbing, oh my goodness moments that you had.
So, like I say, I would be the issue that really spurred me was I was at work one day, and I worked in a place where there are people coming in and out all day, people that it was like a central place that I would see a lot of people that I had worked with. Over the years, I would transfer from building to building or place to place. And I would see guys coming in that I used to work with. And when there were guys that I'd known that I had worked with, and then I'm like, my God, what's his name? I can't remember this guy's name. Guy that I was so familiar with, but I'm like, why can't I remember this guy's name? The face, I wouldn't forget the face, but all of a sudden I'm going, this guy's name. And then I'd see somebody else and it'd be the same thing. And I'd be like, okay, why am I not remembering these people's names? This isn't me. This isn't characteristic of me. There's something wrong here. Why is this happening to me? And like I said, I remember being at work and all right, I gotta get to a doctor. I gotta see a neurologist or something, because something's not right. And I was calling frantically. I remember I took a break, started going on Google, neurologist, and calling. Okay, yeah, we got an appointment in 2 months. We got an appointment. And I was like, I can't wait this long. I'm like, this is driving me crazy. So I found one that actually had a cancellation on, I think it was that day or the next day. And I'm like, okay, I gotta go. I got an appointment. I gotta go see a neurologist. And I went to the neurologist, sat down with him, told him everything that was going on. And he wanted to send me for a brain MRI. I actually have the sheet here, and I was telling them everything going on. I actually have the sheet right here, and I don't know if you can see this. It says early dementia.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm sitting there, and I saw that before I was going for my MRI, and I think that was a crap my pants moment, where I'm thinking like, I'm 43 years old. I can't have dementia. Like, what's going on here? What's wrong with me? You know, and that was a moment that was kind of like, oh my God, this could be really bad. And like I say, they sent me for the MRI, and they came back and they told me there was some kind of something spotting or whatever on the surface of my brain. And it said it could be caused by vasculitis. I actually have everything here. I saved all my stuff here. Microangiopathic changes related to migraine headache, infectious processes such as Lyme disease, as well as inflammatory process such as vasculitis. So they sent me to Mass General Hospital in Boston to the vasculitis specialist. This guy was like world renowned, put me through all kinds of testing. You do not have vasculitis, he says. I said, okay, check that one off, right? So then I go back to the neurologist. He says, I'm going to send you to a clinic. They're going to test you, do cognitive testing to see if you have dementia or early onset dementia. I said, okay, that one made me really nervous. So they sent me there. I went through all the cognitive testing for dementia. I was really, like I said, really nervous about that. Didn't have dementia, and end up going back to the neurologist, doesn't have dementia. And he says to me, well, I think it's from your TRT therapy. And I'm like, my TRT therapy? I said, that doesn't sound right to me, because I've been in TRT therapy for about 6 or 7 years. This is just kind of coming out of the blue. So I don't know what's going on here. And he said, well, that's my diagnosis. I don't know what to tell you. And I'm like, okay. So I just kind of said, all right, I don't think he's correct, but I don't know. So I just that's when I really kind of buckled in and said, well, I'm just going to have to get used to these headaches, and hopefully the memory issues resolve themselves. And I got into more of the competitive nature of bodybuilding. Like I said, you know, I just need to maybe distract myself a little bit. I stopped wrestling at that point, figuring maybe the concussions had something to do with it from the bumps I was taking. And I said, I need to focus on something that's going to be a little bit less taxing, as far as like taking those falls, hitting my head, stuff like that. So I won't do that anymore. I'll just focus on bodybuilding that way. Yeah, I'm pushing my body, but I'm not, you know, getting slammed around as much, or I should say I'm getting slammed at all on the mat, bumping my head or anything like that. So I got into the bodybuilding thing, and I felt fantastic for 5 years. No issues, like slight memory issues that seemed to get better because I changed my diet. I was more on a bodybuilder's diet. I wasn't eating a lot of sugar or bad food. I was eating very clean, very healthy foods. And like I said, I was great for 5 years. From
Mark, before we get after that 5-year window, I just want to just ask a couple of follow-up questions on that journey beforehand. So the neurologist sent you for various testing. Everything came back negative for your dementia. And then they said, all right, it must be your TRT therapy, which is testosterone replacement therapy, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Right. So what's interesting about that is, so I have a couple of thoughts on it. So the first one is, what was his recommendation or solution to stop using the testosterone replacement therapy and then things would get better? So how did you leave that doctor's visit, and what was your takeaway?
Well, so I told him, I said, I said, I was in a real mental funk prior to the TRT. When I went to, the TRT doctor, at first he said, well, are you depressed? And I said, no, I don't think I'm depressed. I just feel like I can't get out of my own way, physically more than anything. And I said, I'm a very active person. And for me to be this tired, it's just not something, something doesn't feel right. So he did blood work on me, and he saw that my testosterone was about 300, a little over 300, like 304 or something like that, which for an individual my age, they say is more closer to between, like, say 500 to 700 or something like that. So it was low. So he said, let's try testosterone and see how you feel with the testosterone. Well, within a couple of weeks, I noticed that the energy was back. I felt I was getting back to being able to work out. I wasn't feeling sluggish. I was sleeping better. Everything had seemed to get better from that. So, things were like back to normal for a good period of time. Like I said, from that was like my late 30s, maybe 37 or 38 till about 43. That's when I started getting all those headaches and the memory lapses.
So what the other part of this is many people with Lyme disease have dysregulated hormones, right? Meaning their hormones
Yeah,
are all out of whack. So we
right.
hear from many leading Lyme doctors that hormone therapy and another type of hormone therapy is the bioidentical hormone therapy is very common to help balance out hormones that are dysregulated from Lyme disease. And in fact, I just did a TRT therapy Lyme keyword search into Google, and their AI came back with, all about it. And they're talking about Lyme disease causing very low testosterone levels, and TRT therapy as a potential way to offset that while treating, or even a way to help balance things out to help you, in your recovery journey. So
Yeah,
it's interesting that your doctor, your neurologist specifically said your TRT therapy was causing your dementia, which it was really your Lyme disease causing your dementia, right? Or your
right.
cognitive issues. And to
My
stop
belief,
your
yeah.
TRT therapy, which that testosterone therapy was actually helping you with your Lyme journey. So if anything, again, probably good intentions, but that advice seems to be very flawed because the one
Yeah,
thing that was helping you, he told you to stop
right.
and didn't attribute it to the actual proper root cause there. So did you
Yeah.
stop it? I'm just curious. Or did you basically say,
No,
screw
I,
you, I'm
I
going to
was
go do my
done with
thing?
him. I pretty much fired him right there. I said, I'm not buying into his diagnosis because I recollected back to when I started that therapy and how I felt then and how I felt up to the headaches and the memory lapses. And I said, things are going well physically for me. Whereas before I was, very tired, sluggish. There's got to be something else that's causing these headaches. And, uh, you know, like I said, he just said, well, I think you need to stop your TRT. And I said, I'm not stopping the TRT. I feel it's going to make me crash and I don't want to regress and go backwards. So after that, I just kind of said, you know what, I'm done. I'm not going to consult with this guy anymore. I don't think he's given me a proper diagnosis. And he never even suggested to, take a Lyme disease test, which I look back at now and I think like, geez, he never said, have you ever been tested for Lyme, or I'm going to test you for Lyme. So that kind of, like I say, looking back on it, I wonder if I had that back then, because here I am today with it, and you know, still having the headaches. Like I said, the last couple months have been really good to me. But that year and a half that I took off, I was off the TRT therapy, and I crashed. I had regressed quite a bit in that time off period of being off the testosterone. As far as my demeanor, everything, I was in bad mood. I was very tired all the time, a lot of headaches, not feeling well, just like, a dumpster fire.
Mark, you mentioned earlier that I think it was a neurologist said from the scan that it could be caused by a bacterial infection like Lyme disease. Was that the same neurologist who
Yes.
had that note from the scan of your brain, but didn't even consider running a Lyme test, even though it was clearly called out on the results of your brain scan?
Yep. Yeah.
That is insane. So,
Same doctor. Yeah. I was kind of, like I say, when I got that MRI report and I went back for the consult, he said, you know, he asked, do you have any history of vasculitis in your family? And I was like, I don't even know what vasculitis is. So he said, well, I'm going to send you to Mass General. We're going to have the vasculitis guy do a comprehensive test. So he did all his testing, sent me back, said, nope, it's not vasculitis. Then he said, okay, well, we're going to send you to the cognitive lab, and they're going to do the assessment for dementia. Did that whole assessment. I literally still have that report right here. That was negative. No sign of dementia. Everything that I did seemed to be on the up and up. So he said, no, you do not have dementia. And then, like I say, I went back and he just kind of threw that it's your TRT thing at me. And I was like, I don't know about that. I'm like, I said, TRT really seemed to help me when I started it. And he said, well, I think it's going to it's causing problems for you and you need to stop. And I said, no, I'm not going to stop. And he said, well, I don't know what you expect me to do now. And I said, I don't know what to expect. I said, you're the doctor, but I said, I don't think you're right on this one.
Maybe look at the piece of paper in front of him from the guy who did the MRI and say, oh, maybe I should look at Lyme disease because that's the
Yeah.
only other option I haven't looked at yet, right? That's just
Right.
insane.
Yeah,
Totally
absolutely.
insane.
Absolutely insane. Like I say, it didn't register with me at the time. But then when I kind of like was digging through all these papers and I went, geez, I'm like, this thing says Lyme disease. And I'm just like, the guy never even said, you know what, why don't we test you for Lyme disease? And I thought back to that. And, it was, like I said, I was kind of floored when I read the report. I'm like, hey, wait a minute with this. I'm like, I wonder if I had this way back then.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So now you're kind of just, toughing it out for the next 5 years, but you're doing a lot of good,
Yeah.
diet and personal care routine. So you're kind of just
Right.
managing at this point. Walk us through what happens next because you're still getting these migraines, you're not doing well. Now you pivot over to bodybuilding, you stop wrestling, you're still
Yeah.
working, right? I mean, now build us up what happens next in your experience here.
So, like I said, I was competing, at least, pretty much yearly from 2015 up to 2018. I was consistently placing in the top 3 events. Every time I competed, I was, either winning second, third place, doing really well. Other than, like I say, the headaches and I kind of tried to put the memory lapses into kind of like, oh, well, you know what, maybe I'm just getting older and, I'm not remembering as much. I don't know. And things were good. I was happy. I was retiring from law enforcement, and things were going well. So then 2020 rolls around, good old 2020, and
The
right,
pandemic.
yeah, the pandemic. And then right before my birthday, which is September, I got COVID. And I kind of had to think about this after the fact. So I got COVID early September, mid September. I was sick for about 2 weeks, just very tired, sleeping a lot. I never had any of the respiratory issues as far as that goes. It was just a lot of tired, just wanted to sleep, sleep, sleep. And after I felt better, I took about a week off. Um, After that, so 3 weeks out of the gym, 2 weeks sick, 1 week just letting my body recover a little bit more. And then I went back into the gym training, and my body responded like real fast. Like everything, just like everything I had just jumped back into me, and I felt great for about 2 months, to the point where I said, okay, you know what, I'm going to do another show. 2021, I'm going to actually, I thought about, well, yeah. So 2021, I said, you know what, I'm going to compete in the summer. I was probably looked as good as I ever had. And then in around November, about probably 2 months after COVID, I noticed my knees really started to bother me. Uh, Really, really bad. Like I never had any issues with my legs ever. My knees were always like my legs and my knees were always my super strong like body parts. I had shoulder injuries and all kinds of other different upper body stuff, but my legs were like they were like concrete. I never had problems. And then all of a sudden, like I say, just my knees, like same pain, both knees, same spot, same level of pain. And it was just like, okay, what's going on here with my knees? Why am I having so many issues? Like I was having pain just walking up and down stairs. I would put like one plate on a leg extension machine, and I like just bending my knees was like, oh my God, wait, my knees shot. Like, what's going on here? Like, am I going to need knee replacements? And it just came out of like seemingly nowhere. And like I said, that was like November 2020. And I'm like, what's wrong with my knees? I'm like, something going on here. And then from the knees, about a month after that, or maybe a little bit more, then I noticed around like the new year, after Christmas, I wasn't sleeping good. My sleep was just severely, like I was either like completely wired, or I was so tired that there were times I couldn't even sleep. And then I would wake up in the morning and I would feel like I just put my head on the pillow and I got no rest. And I just, the brain fog seemed to be kind of like thick. And My girlfriend was like, maybe you just have long COVID. And I was like, I don't know. I'm like, because after I was sick, I had that like 2 month span where I felt great and everything was going good. And I was going to compete again. And then all of a sudden, like, I sat there and I thought, like, maybe I have cancer or something. I don't know what's going on. Like, something's just wrong. And like I say, the knees are bothering me. Like, just going up and down the stairs was troublesome. The fatigue, like literally just not like trying to get into the gym to even start a workout was like, oh my God, why am I struggling so bad? Why can't I sleep? Why am I so tired? Like, what is going on here? And that was kind of continuing and continuing. And that, like I say, I just kind of thought, like, well, maybe I do have long COVID. I don't know. And so the thing that really started to click in my head, um, so I brought my dog in for his checkup, his yearly checkup. And so he has an injury that they suspect was from a vaccine. So he doesn't get vaccinations anymore. So they titer test his blood. So the doctor, after the titer test, okay, his rabies is titer is good, his parvo is this, is that, going down the line. And then she goes, okay, and his Lyme test was negative. And I don't know what it was, but when she said that, it was like the light bulb in my head goes off and I go, Lyme disease. No idea what it is or what, and I go, maybe I should get a Lyme test. I'm like, at least I can rule it out. So I leave the vet, I go home, I look up symptoms of Lyme disease, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I got that. I got that. Oh my God. I got the headaches. I got the brain fog. I got, the insomnia. I got the knee pain, the joint pain and I'm like, maybe that's it. And I had actually not a physical, but I would get blood work done regularly with the bodybuilding just to make sure all my blood counts were accurate. I wasn't stressing out my liver or things like that. I'd get everything checked out, like usually at least 2 to 3 times a year. And so I actually had a blood test coming up a couple of weeks after that. And I walked into the office. It was through the TRT doctor. And I said, hey, can you do a Lyme disease test? And the phlebotomist said, well, you're not feeling well? And I said, I've been feeling like crap for about, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 months. And she's like, oh, geez, well, we got 2 tests. Which one do you want? I'm like, I have no idea. I'm like, what's the difference between the two? And she's, well, I'll just do the both of them. That way, at least we don't have to have you come back. And next thing you know, they call me back and they say, yeah, you tested positive for Lyme. You got it pretty bad, actually. And I got the test here. I might have it here with me. So the bands, you probably know the bands, the Lyme bands. I think I had 5 or 6 of them that were checked off.
Wow.
So it was pretty high. Yeah. Yeah. And she said, a lot of people that get tested for Lyme usually have like 2 to 3 bands. And she's like, you got like, I think it was, like I said, 5 or 6. And she's like, you're pretty bad right now. So
yeah, and that Lyme testing is not very accurate either. So it's a roll of the dice. So you're lucky that you tested positive. And we heard this so much during the pandemic that people would get COVID or get the vaccine, and they were fighting off Lyme. But after the vaccine or the actual infection with COVID, they got really sick because their body was compromised, and that was the trigger, right? That was the perfect storm.
That's what I was thinking was, well, maybe I've had this the whole time. And then once I got that, the COVID, that underlying condition, it opened the door for it to really kind of take off on me.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and look, knee pain is a very common symptom for Lyme disease. That's like a hallmark symptom, right?
Yeah.
The insomnia, fatigue. I mean, look, LymeDisease.org did a symptom survey for all these Lyme patients, and I think it's the biggest one probably in the world. And the number one symptom they came back with was fatigue, chronic debilitating fatigue. So that's another huge symptom for Lyme disease. Now, you get a diagnosis through your TRT doctor. What's your treatment plan look like? Are you treating with her? Are you going to see another doctor? What are you doing now?
So he put me on doxycycline, which I found after the fact that once you have the infection that is really set in like that doxycycline isn't the proper medication, that the Lyme can adapt to that within 72 hours. So I ended up being on that doxycycline for over 3 months, which made me sicker.
And you
got
had
rid of
gut
some.
issues to begin with. You had stomach issues
Yeah,
prior to that, and that
right,
destroys your gut, right? So yeah.
right. So now, after taking that doxycycline, which I took it myself off at after like going into the 4th month, because like I said, it was just making me feel more sick. And then I noticed that my gut became really distended. Um, and it ended up being I had like a yeast overgrowth because that doxycycline had caused so much problems that the
Yeah.
yeast was allowed to, grow and distended my gut. So I kind of just stopped taking that doxycycline, and I kind of started looking into different herbal, remedies and holistic type treatments. And I got into, just the Japanese knotweeds and the
Yeah.
wormwood and the black walnut hulls. And, I got, different stuff here. I got like this, holistic guide to wellness. And, I started kind of really looking at different, remedies for that.
All by yourself. So you bought that book, started reading up,
Yeah,
and started just taking.
that
I mean,
was
that
it.
was on point. Japanese knotweed and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
were you more open minded to Eastern medicine prior to getting sick? Because it's very rare that people jump right into that or are that open minded to it.
Yeah, like I said, I just kind of thought like, okay, doxycycline, we'll get the doxy, we'll get on that, we'll get rid of the infection. Like, the belief that a lot of people have is, oh yeah, you get bit by a tick, you just take some doxycycline and you're good, which isn't it may be if you catch it early enough. But if you don't, then yeah, you're going to start, you're going to have some problems. So I think it's imperative that if you do get a tick pulled out of you or you find a tick on you, that you get on that preventive medicine, whether that, oh, you can't get it unless the tick's attached for 36. Yeah, no, like if you find something in you, like, at least send it out to get tested, get on that, preventive course just to cover yourself, because like once you kind of get into that sickness, like it's hard to get out of it.
Now walk us through. So you're kind of doing this on your own with this natural side. Are you having
Right.
herxes? Are you feeling any better? What are you learning? Share with us the learning lessons you had from this experience while you were
So
treating with the Eastern stuff.
so I ended up going into a holistic practitioner, um, and he was treating me with frequency or a low level laser, I guess, and that seemed to help me quite a bit. That took quite a while. Insurance doesn't cover it. I was in that protocol, I would say, for a year. It seemed to help me quite a bit. And then when that treatment concluded, I felt good for a little while, but then I started to notice that I was regressing. At the time, I also was off testosterone, um, because I noticed while I was going through some of the treatment, I was like kind of herxing here and there. And I just figured, I said, well, for this treatment, I think I'll just take it some time off from the gym, because I was getting sick anyway. Got off the TRT. Like I said, that was December of 2023. And that treatment, so I was about 6 months into that treatment. I think I started summer of 2023, and it concluded about June of 2024, maybe around, I think, June or July of last summer. And then, like I say, I felt pretty good for a couple of months. And then I noticed I started to relapse back into, the headaches, the not feeling well, the tired, the irritability, everything just seemed to be shot. And like I say, I kind of attribute it to not being on the TRT, so that the testosterone levels crashed down. And I felt like my world was kind of caving in at that point, because I'm like, man, I'm like, what's going on here? Like, I just finished this treatment not too long ago. I felt like it helped, and then all of a sudden, I'm kind of back into, I almost felt like I was back to square one again. Like, all right, I got to figure this out, because I can't keep doing this. And so I just started to kind of look into various things and gut health and all that. And I said, you know what? Let me try this. Maybe another gut cleanse. I'm in need. I could do that. And I hadn't had one in years. And I said, I wonder if this would help. And I had read something before that if you have like, parasitic infection, that the bacteria can kind of hide inside the parasites, and they can excrete that infection back into you. So I said, let me try this gut cleanse because there's anti-parasitics and stuff in it. And like I said, I did that in March, and I was like at rock bottom. And I had scheduled a physical for myself. I started this, that gut cleanse again. And I noticed like within a couple of weeks, I'm like, geez, I haven't had a headache. I haven't felt this. I haven't, and then I noticed like as my body's pushing out all this like, waste, impacted waste. I go for my physical, everything's good. My testosterone was low. So let's get back on the TRT, got back on the TRT, started working out again, like real easy in my basement. I noticed, I said, okay, started pushing myself a little bit harder. And now here I am. Like I said, that was in early March. My physical was in April, so a month and a half ago. And I'm probably feeling the best I've felt since that like 4-year mark where I really was like, after the whole COVID thing that, like my life is turned upside down here. Now I wouldn't say I'm 100%, but I would say I'm probably about 80, realistically 80 to 85. Really haven't had any headaches, like maybe some minor, like, a little bit of a stiff neck, but like overall, doing that gut cleanse. And then I added colostrum to that, which kind of fortifies your immune system. There's a lot of like different things in that. Grass-fed colostrum, that really seemed to help. I think your gut health is important, is vital to fighting this, and keeping your body as healthy as can be, not, eating, don't get me wrong. I like my desserts and stuff like that, but not being kind of gluttonous, and it's managed it. Like I say, I'm I just started going back into the actual gym and not training in my basement. And, everything seems to be going well right now. I'm like kind of like day to day crossing my fingers, drinking lemon water and stuff like that, just trying to keep my body as healthy a state as I can right now. So it's literally a day to day battle,
Yeah, and I'll say, Mark, the one thing that I always think about, and I'm guilty of this myself, and I think you realize this, obviously, is that recency bias is an important term, meaning it probably wasn't just the gut cleanse that got you to where you are today. It's everything together, right? I mean, it's probably the multi-month program you did with the lasers and the frequencies. Right. It's probably, and honestly, the antibiotics as well, because they are antimicrobial. So I think they helped you as well. And Absolutely. Then the herbals for sure, the Japanese knotweed, all the herbals you did and you experimented with, those are wonderful in treating tick-borne illnesses like Lyme and co-infections and inflammation and things like that. So I think you hit on all the right things. And once you got that last piece, which was the final gut cleanse, you're like, oh, wow, like I'm feeling pretty good. And
one thing I also incorporated as well, because like I say, I was, with the Herxin after the strenuous workouts, I started to think like, okay, well, what can I do in case I herx? Because I don't want to disrupt the momentum I have. So another thing that I put in place was Essiac. I take Essiac twice a day, which is kind of like it helps keep your organs kind of flushed, your liver, your kidneys. They say there's, pure blood purifier in there. That way, if you are herxing, that can kind of keep your blood a little bit purified. And I also will take, if I have a day where I'm like, man, I really pushed myself. If I start to feel like maybe I'm not feeling my best, I'll take a binder, and the binder really seems to like settle me down.
What kind of binder do you take? Do you know what brand or what type?
I have it right over here. Let me see. Let me find it right here on my phone. It is
yeah, while you're looking it up, I'm just gonna so Essiac, you mentioned earlier, it's ESSIAC, right?
Yes.
And that's really an herbal tea mixture that has burdock root, Indian rhubarb root, sheep sorrel, and slippery elm bark, all of which are great for Lyme. I mean, slippery elm bark, I take that. I love that. So all of these things together, they're good for your gut health. They're good for, your immune system. So, I mean, you're really hitting it from all these different angles and strengthening your body and helping it get rid of these toxins, get rid of these microbes like the Lyme bacteria. So you hit it from a lot of angles, and, it's a really good approach.
And while I train, I also use electrolytes. I switched out branch chain and essential aminos for electrolytes to keep my body hydrated as much as I possibly can. The binder I take, it's got, let's see, so it's got zeolite clay, activated charcoal, diatomaceous earth, spirulina, bentonite clay, chlorella. It's got knack in it, milk thistle, dandelion root extract. It's got prebiotic and probiotic in it, and turmeric extract with black pepper extract. So
Oh,
it's
that's
pretty
way more
good.
than a binder. That's like a super powerful capsule there,
Yeah,
right? I mean, that's
yeah,
anti-inflammatory. That's good for your liver. That's good
yes,
for, I mean, detox.
yeah.
That's huge. Yeah, that's
I
what.
don't take it daily, but like so say yesterday I did a pretty grueling leg workout, and I could feel my body like a little bit warm last night, like not like a hot flash, but I felt like maybe I should take this binder just in case. And like I took the binder last night, and then I woke up this morning and I felt like $1 million again. So I'm like, all right, maybe I'm onto something here with this. Like maybe I can work out, push myself a little bit harder. And if I'm not feeling well, I'll just pop that binder. I take the SEAC and the electrolytes and, try to keep my body in as healthy a state as possible.
Yeah, can you share with us the who makes that binder in case somebody's
Yeah.
listening wants to give it a shot?
So it is residency, yeah, like almost like science, RESCIENCY. It's a residency binder plus
Got it. Okay.
comprehensive detox. I got it off of Amazon.
Nice. Okay. So is there anything else, Mark, that we missed that you did? I mean, you gave us a lot here. Anything else that you touched on? Oh, with the frequencies. So what kind of frequencies was it? And you talked about, was it PEMF? Was it RIFE? Was it a RIFE machine? What tool? Because there's
Yeah,
a lot of different things out there.
yeah. So the I can't remember the laser that he used on me, but it was a low level frequency laser, and he did they called it a Zyto scan, and it would kind of send pings into your body. You kind of hold this ball with electrodes on it, and it would send pings into your body, and it would tell you where there were frequencies that shouldn't be in your body. So that was the concentration of where the Lyme was. So for me, it was in my brainstem, my heart, my gallbladder, my knees, and my ankles is where the heaviest concentrations were. I also do have my own RIFE machine. I've used that. I've noticed. I don't know if it's a placebo effect, but I feel like I do have some success with it when I use it. I also do have a PEMF mat that I sleep on. It's got crystals in it. That's from Healthy Line, I believe. It's got you can heat it up, so it's got a sauna effect to it. I have a one of those sauna bags, although I had an experience in that where I stayed in it too long and it kind of maybe not feel so good afterwards. So I haven't really used that much since. But the PMF mat, and it's got red light therapy on it. So before I go to bed, I put that red light therapy on. It lasts for an hour. It took a little getting used to sleep on that mat, but it's got like a nice little cushion on it, so it's not that uncomfortable. And I sleep on that PMF mat on 10 megahertz, which is a little bit higher than what they say for sleep. They say sleep should be on 8, but I notice when I put it on 10, I seem to sleep a little bit better. So that has been, I think, a help for me. I've been sleeping like pretty much through the night, most nights. Some nights I get up to go to the bathroom. Other nights I'll just sleep right through the night, which just seems kind of rare for me, but I'm not complaining about it. So I'm kind of trying to take an approach where I'm just going to hit it with everything I can. From the herbals to the various therapies, whether it's RIFE, whether it's, like I said, sleeping on that PMF mat, the red light therapy, for that hour while I'm laying in bed getting ready to go to sleep. So I don't think it's one thing or this thing or that thing. I think you'd have to take throw everything you can at it.
Yeah. Now, my final question, Mark, is if you're at the gym tomorrow and somebody walks up to you and starts talking to you and telling you, oh, I just got diagnosed with Lyme and I'm trying to get back into it, but I'm really sick, or better yet, hey, my son is really sick with Lyme disease. He's bedbound. He's at home right now, and I'm really worried for him. I'm not sure what to do. What advice would you give somebody now after being through it and learning what you've learned?
Uh, every day is going to be different. You might have a day or a week or whatever where you feel great. Then you might have days that you don't want to do anything. I would say, just take it one day at a time. Don't get ahead of yourself. Um, if you find something that helps you, continue to take it. Um, like I say, tried some different things. Like for me, I would try something, I would stop it, try something else. There's a supplement I take. It's got everything in one that, like the Japanese knotweed, cryptolepis, wormwood, black walnut, and I take that. I've been taking that now. Like I say, I'll cycle through things on and off. I might take it for 2 or 3 months and then take a month break. Not let my body get totally used to something. And then, if I feel like, I might be regressing a little bit, okay, let's get back to this because this thing was making me feel real good. So, try not to, it's like anything. You body build tolerance to things. It could, but if it's something that's working for you, try to stick with it. If there's something, to keep a track of the foods that you're eating, maybe the foods are affecting you in a different way. I noticed since I've cut a lot of carbs out of my diet, I feel a lot better. Um, I don't really eat pasta or bread anymore. If I want bread or something, I'll get a sourdough instead. And, I keep that minimal. I eat more meat and vegetables or something, to keep my body full. Again, and I love carbs. I love pizza, but I try to minimize it now at this point because I feel better. I don't feel my gut is getting bloated out or anything like that. So yeah, just kind of like I say, just take it a day at a time. Um, don't get into a panic about things. You might have a day where you just if something stresses you out, try not to let it get to you too much. That stress isn't going to help. Just kind of maybe chalk it up to maybe I need a little more extra rest today, or what, I'm not gonna let it get in my head that I have this going on today. And you just try to go one day at a time, and just do the best you can. And don't I'm not sitting there thinking okay, my guts feel good, everything's, I'm gonna go back and get on stage. No, at this point it's just my health, managing it and doing the best I can, on a day-to-day basis.
So, Mark Ouellette, I can't thank you enough for joining our Tick Bootcamp podcast. What I really loved about this interview is twofold. You helped us raise awareness to the general population about the severity of Lyme disease, and you really personalized it to make it real. And then on the other hand, you also help people listening who are going through the chronic Lyme experience, and you gave them a ton of tips, tricks, shortcuts, and patterns that they probably didn't know before this interview. So I truly cannot thank you enough, Mark, for joining our podcast.
Yeah, like I say, this isn't something I would wish on my worst enemy, because, as you know, it can be something different every day. One day it's a headache, the next day it's this, the next day it could be, your joints are a little sore. So, it's not like people don't know, oh, what is it? And I'm like, it's literally can be anything. It can affect your brain, it can affect your organs, it can affect your joints, it can affect your muscles, it can make you tired. There's pretty, as they say, the great imitator, right? It mimics a lot of different things. And for me, I just, I was excited to do this, spreading awareness. I've been on my social media page, on Facebook, putting up stuff. I got people reaching out to me oh my God, I know somebody that has, I'm going to let them know. And so, even just helping like one person or a couple people, if I can get them on the right track, then, I hope, they have the success that I have had with all the things that I've been doing. So, like I say, I don't want to get ahead of myself, because who knows what can happen tomorrow. But as far as right now, taking it one day at a time, things have been going really well for me. So I feel very, very grateful, very blessed that I am where I am right now.